In the golden light of the late afternoon, a well-dressed man named Marcus sat quietly on a park bench, staring blankly at the scene in front of him. Marcus, a billionaire in his early 50s, looked out of place here, where the dirt paths and worn-out swings painted a different picture from his life of sleek offices and skyscrapers. But today, he wasn't Marcus the tycoon. He was just a man seeking solace, a break from the relentless grind of building and maintaining his empire. The park had become a rare sanctuary, a place where he could blend in without anyone recognizing him. As he sipped his coffee, his gaze drifted toward a group of kids laughing and playing near a fountain, their laughter bubbling over the murmur of the city around them. They wore faded, mismatched clothes, their faces smudged with dirt, yet they radiated a carefree joy. Marcus felt a sudden, inexplicable pang in his chest, a sense of longing or perhaps regret. He couldn't quite place it. Then, his eyes settled on a young girl, a little way off from the others, quietly drawing shapes in the dirt with a stick. She was maybe 16, her clothes worn and faded. Her dark hair framed a face streaked with grime, but in her posture, there was a quiet strength that caught his attention. As she brushed her hair back, Marcus's eyes widened. There, just below her ear, was a small, almost imperceptible birthmark, a unique shape that he hadn't seen in years but had never forgotten. A flood of memories engulfed him, images of a young woman named Rachel, the only woman he had truly loved. Their relationship had been tumultuous, intense, filled with passion and just as many arguments. They had parted ways years ago, assuming their love was simply a chapter that had closed, never meant to be revisited. Marcus never knew she was pregnant. He hadn't heard from Rachel since they parted, and time had drifted them further apart. Barely aware of his own movements, Marcus stood up, his heart pounding. He found himself walking toward the girl, his emotions a turbulent mix of anxiety, hope, and fear. As he approached, she looked up, startled by his presence. Her gaze was guarded, as if she was accustomed to being unnoticed, even by those who passed her daily. "Hi," he said softly, his voice betraying a slight tremble. "I'm sorry to bother you, but can I ask your name?" She hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly as she glanced over at the other kids, perhaps looking for an escape. "I'm Lily," she replied, her voice barely audible but steady. "Lily," he repeated, as if tasting the name. "That's a beautiful name." He paused, unsure of how to ask the next question without sounding invasive. "This might sound strange, but I noticed a birthmark on your neck." He swallowed, feeling foolish but compelled to continue. "Someone I knew had the same one." Lily's expression shifted, suspicion clouding her eyes. "My mom had it too," she said quietly, looking down as if to shield herself from the weight of her own words. What was your mother's name?" Marcus asked, bracing himself for her answer. "Rachel," she whispered, the name catching in her throat. Marcus felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath him. The shock of hearing her name, a name he hadn't spoken in years, left him weak. He sank onto the bench beside Lily, struggling to compose himself. Tears blurred his vision, but he forced himself to stay focused on the girl before him. "Rachel," he murmured, more to himself than to her. She was everything to me once." He looked into Lily's questioning eyes, filled with confusion and a flicker of something else, perhaps a trace of longing, the same longing he felt. I didn't know she had a daughter. I didn't know about you." Lily's face hardened. She never talked about the past much. "She died in a car accident a few years ago," she said flatly, as if the words were a shield against the pain they held. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Rachel was gone, and he hadn't known. He hadn't been there for her, nor for Lily. The enormity of his absence, his oblivion, crushed him. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice thick with regret. "I didn't know. I had no idea." Lily shrugged, her gaze fixed firmly on the ground. "It's fine," she replied, though her voice trembled slightly. "I've been on my own for a while now." Those words shattered something in him. The idea that his own flesh and blood had been living on the streets, surviving day by day, while he lived in comfort and luxury, filled him with a profound shame. How had he been so blind? He wanted to reach out to take her hand, but he wasn't sure if she would welcome it. After a moment of silence, he gathered his courage. "Lily, I know this is a lot to take in, but I think I might be your father." Lily's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "What?" she whispered, barely able to process his words. Marcus swallowed, choosing his words carefully. "Your mother and we were together a long time ago. We lost touch, and I didn't know she was pregnant. If I'd known, I would have been there. I swear I would have." For a moment, Lily looked at him, her emotions swirling a mix of anger, sadness, confusion, and a spark of something that might have been hope. "You left us," she accused softly, her voice choked with emotion. "I didn't know," he repeated, his voice almost breaking. "I would never have left if I had known." They sat in silence, each grappling with the weight of revelations and the feelings they had stirred. Marcus's heart ached as he looked at his daughter, the life he hadn't been part of flashing before his eyes. He reached out tentatively, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm here now," he said quietly, his voice a soft plea, "and I want to make things right. I want to know you, Lily. I want to be the father I should have been all along." Lily looked at him, her face a complicated blend of emotions. She wasn't sure what she felt: anger, relief, maybe even a glimmer of hope. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel entirely alone. They sat together in silence, each absorbing the enormity of what had just happened. Eventually Marcus stood, offering her his hand. "Come with me," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to live like this anymore. Let me take care of you." Lily hesitated, glancing at the park she had called home. But after a moment she reached out, placing her hand in his. Together they left the park, stepping into a future neither of them could have anticipated. That night, Marcus brought her to his penthouse, a world away from the streets she had known. For the first time in years, Lily slept in a bed of her own, surrounded by warmth and comfort. Marcus watched over her, filled with a sense of both joy and regret, vowing never to let her down again. Over the following weeks, Marcus took immediate steps to make her feel at home. He arranged for her formal adoption, eager to make their bond official and legally binding. Although the process was complex, his wealth and influence smoothed the way. But more than anything, it was his determination that pushed things forward. He wasn't content with just providing a home. He wanted her to know she was truly his daughter, in every way that mattered. Once the adoption was complete, Marcus sat down with Lily, explaining what it meant to him. "You're officially my daughter now," he told her, a mix of pride and tenderness in his voice. "You'll have my last name, if you want it." Lily blinked, the magnitude of his words settling over her. She had spent years drifting, without roots or family, and now she had a place she could call home. I think I'd like that," she said softly, surprised at how much it meant to her. With the formalities out of the way, Marcus focused on her future, enrolling her in one of the city's best private schools. He arranged for tutors to help her catch up, supporting her every step of the way. Although the structure of school life was foreign to her, she adapted quickly, her natural intelligence and resilience shining through. For the first time, she had a purpose, a reason to strive beyond survival. Outside of academics, Marcus introduced her to the joys of childhood she had missed. They visited art galleries, museums, and even traveled abroad during the summer. Each experience opened her eyes to a world she had never imagined. Through it all, their bond grew deeper. They shared long conversations over dinner, where Marcus told her about his journey from poverty to wealth, and Lily asked questions about the world she was beginning to understand. He encouraged her to dream big, to believe she could achieve anything she set her mind to. But Marcus also knew that Lily needed to heal from her past. He arranged for her to see a therapist, someone she could talk to about the grief and trauma she had endured. He remained a constant presence, sharing both her quiet moments and her achievements. Years passed, and Lily blossomed into a confident young woman with a deep sense of compassion and a drive to make a difference. Inspired by her own experiences, she decided to pursue a degree in social justice, determined to help others in the same situation she had once been in. Marcus couldn't have been prouder watching her advocate for the marginalized and fight for equality. He saw in her a reflection of the values he held dear. At her graduation, as she received her degree, Marcus sat in the audience with tears in his eyes. He thought about how far they had come, the lost years that had been mended by their journey together. He had once believed his wealth was everything, but through Lily he discovered that true wealth lay in family, love, and the difference one could make in others' lives. As they left the ceremony hand in hand, Marcus turned to Lily, his heart full. "I'm proud of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not just for today, but for everything you've become." Lily looked up at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I wouldn't be here without you, Dad. Thank you for everything." In that moment, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. They were a family, bound not just by blood, but by the journey they had taken to find each other. And in that, they had discovered the true meaning of wealth, love, resilience, and the power of second chances.